Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling listeners, it is our podcast back from a long hiatus, getting some things done in the private life, but the Pro Wrestling Podcast is back. Welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while you're at it, if you are sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 every single year in the latest and greatest wrestling video game, I know I've been waiting for the AEW game for a very long time, haven't seen it yet, then stop waiting around. Go right now to Facebook and check out Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively to Facebook users, totally free. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name and a shout out, then check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today, and don't forget we have a loyalty rewards program that allows any $15 a month contributor to co-host an episode of a live show with myself, or $7.50 a month contributors get entered into a drawing to also co-host a live episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. First one in quite some time. We'll be taking your questions, your comments, anything you'd like to touch on in the day's news and rumors through our talk-to-text hotline, the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160. Or if you happen to be streaming our show right now, make sure you put your questions, your comments into the comment box, and I could try to get to them as we go throughout the show. Don't forget, head over to the homepage of the Pro Wrestling Podcast at prowrestling.com. All right, going to jump right into the news. We are on the big night. Everybody has been waiting to see what's going to happen tonight at Rampage, AEW's kickoff, week 2. This is the night we've all been waiting for. Is this going to be the return of CM Punk to professional wrestling? With everything that Tony Khan has been promising everybody under the sun, I don't see how they can do this and not deliver on CM Punk tonight. If they don't, it would be an absolute dagger in the heart to the entire AEW crowd, the entire audience, and it would be devastating. Now, everybody should remember back in January, February, right after the Royal Rumble, when WWE did not come to terms on a long-term contract with Christian, when AEW was hyping a Hall of Fame level wrestler coming to the company, and it turned out that it was Christian when everybody was expecting it to be a CM Punk, a Daniel Bryan, a Kurt Angle, something like that, and it turned out to be Christian. Not that Christian isn't completely worthy of a Hall of Fame spot, but he wasn't what people were looking for or expecting. So tonight, are we going to see the return of CM Punk in a massive way at AEW Rampage? And the conversation has gone all over the place today. I've listened to media outlets all over the internet, YouTube channels, all different podcasts, everybody debating what they should do tonight. Should they have CM Punk come out and attack somebody? Should it be a major star in a world championship opportunity like something with Kenny Omega? Or should he go for somebody smaller to create a bigger build, maybe a Sammy Guevara who uses a similar finishing move to CM Punk? Or should they just have him walk out with his music cued and everything else, and then at the end of his little segment where he walks out, just cue the camera, shut it down, and make it so people want to come back the following week? Now, if you are in Chicago tonight and you're listening to the show and they don't do something more than just have him walk out, you're probably going to lose your mind because you paid a lot of money and you're hoping to see something exciting. Now, there are other people who say, well, maybe he does something after the show goes off the air for the Chicago crowd. I think you give whatever he does tonight, you give to everybody, because this is not just some guy jumping ship from one company to another. This is the biggest return to wrestling since Edge returned at the Royal Rumble, Daniel Bryan before that, and probably Shawn Michaels before that. This is huge in the world of professional wrestling, and this is one of those ones that you need to be very careful in how they handle things. Now, I did see this week the comments from Roman Reigns talking about CM Punk, saying how he was never as big a draw or over as much as John Cena. He was saying that he was never over or biggest draw or had the same, I forget the verbiage he used, basically the same electricity as The Rock. You know what? Here's the reality of the situation. CM Punk, and Mick Foley came out and he defended CM Punk, and I couldn't agree with him more. In one pipe bomb promo, changed the entire business, the way fans, not necessarily how Vince McMahon approaches the wrestling business, but how fans see the business in one night. He took people who may have been fly-by-night fans who didn't have they weren't into the dirt sheets, they weren't paying attention to the F4W onlines, and the Wrestling Observer newsletters don't even know who Dave Meltzer was. Those people may not have cared right up until he started dropping that pipe bomb promo. Until they did the whole angle where he was leaving and he took the championship with him and then he came back and all that stuff. Maybe it's not John Cena. Maybe it's not the longevity of John Cena. Maybe it's not The Rock. You know what it is? It's CM Punk. And CM Punk put on quality matches with every single person he was in the ring with. He took a guy who was green as a gourd in Ryback and made him look like a megastar, so much so that people to this day think that when Ryback was undefeated, he should have been made world champion because they had so much momentum. He got that momentum by facing people like CM Punk. CM Punk has been in the ring with everybody from all the way down to people the size of Rey Mysterio Jr. putting on incredible matches, all the way to people like The Undertaker at WrestleMania. And let's be honest, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm going to sing the praises that everything Punk does is just automatically okay. I think the way he walked out was kind of petty. I think him being upset about not being the main event of WrestleMania was petty. I don't think he understands that the business side of the professional wrestling industry is not about you and me. It's not about us really diehard wrestling fans. It's about those mainstream people who only watch WWE and want to see celebrities and returning old stars to get the big pop in the ratings. They're a business. That's what they do. You and I know that we'd much rather see, some fantasy dream match, I don't know, a Seth Rollins versus a Kazuchika Okada or something like that. But most people don't even know who Kazuchika Okada is. You guys do, because you're informed. You're great fans. If you're listening to this show, you must be, because only diehard fans will listen to a show like this. So here's the thing. We have to understand, we have to accept that WWE is a mainstream international business. They have to do what drives the dollars. They're a publicly traded company, and even though you, me, and everybody in the world thinks that forbidden door should have been knocked down decades ago, and we should be seeing crossovers with Kenny Omega and Seth Rollins, and see stuff like Daniel Bryan going against I don't even care who, I get all that. But that's not the way the wrestling business works when it comes to WWE because of the position that they're in. So I don't necessarily think Roman Reigns was speaking from the heart. I think he was taking a very business approach to things, kind of trying to bring down CM Punk right before his big debut with AEW. Because let's be honest, I don't think there's anybody listening to the show who doesn't think that CM Punk is coming tonight. But at the same time, Roman Reigns has to do what Roman Reigns has to do for the betterment of WWE. And let's be honest, that includes tearing down the possibility of seeing CM Punk return tonight. So we'll have to see what happens. A little frustrated this week. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a tough time watching Dynamite and seeing Chris Jericho lose after everything he went through. You know what I'm saying? Where does Chris Jericho go from here? And don't get me wrong. If he was leaving for a temporary time to go on tour with Fozzy, I get it. And I know that's coming sooner or later. But he doesn't have anything with Fozzy through All Out. Why they did this match and didn't do it at All Out, I'll never understand. And then what do you do with him after All Out? He'll be around probably for a couple weeks after that, and then he'll probably go away with Fozzy for a while. So I get it if you would have done this later, but doing it now doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. And, is this one of those things where Chris Jericho is going to think about maybe hanging up the boots? Maybe it's getting to be too much for him. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping not. I think he's still contributing at an incredibly high level. I think he's one of the most legitimate people I've seen in years, and he is doing so much for AEW. Tell me that every diehard fan didn't get absolute goosebumps with him walking out and the fans singing him to the ring. Not that we didn't all know that was coming. Like, only even a blind man could have seen that coming. But to hear it, to feel the electricity, to see the appreciation in Jericho's eyes, that is priceless, and I'm thrilled that I got to see that. Ric Flair, in the news again, leaves WWE, shows up at AAA, Triple Mania, helps Andrade when he goes to challenge Kenny Omega. Now it has been confirmed Ric Flair will be returning to the NWA for NWA 73, airing live on pay-per-view from St. Louis, Missouri, and on August 29th. I don't know what the deal is. I'm sure this is just a one-off for now, but like there is nothing more pleasurable to see than Ric Flair return to the NWA. You want to talk about the face of a company? There is no company in this world that is more synonymous with one particular person than Ric Flair and the NWA. So I am so happy to see he's going to be doing that. I love that he doesn't have a no-compete clause, that Vince trusted him enough to let him go do some things. And now, of course, everybody under the sun thinks he'll go right to AEW. I actually hope he doesn't. Not because I don't want to see it, but because I feel like AEW will drop the ball and they'll do some kind of funky thing with him and Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard and J.J. Dillon and all this stuff. And that's been there, done that. I don't want to see that anymore. You know, that's about 25, 30 years past when I want to see that. It's time for Ric Flair to focus on Ric Flair things. Working with Andrade is a fantastic idea, though you just had him start working with Chavo Guerrero, so that kind of complicates things. Clearly, Charlotte's not leaving WWE anytime soon, so that's not an angle to work. Maybe, just maybe, I'm going to throw this out there. It's just something that ran into my head when I was thinking about the news for the day. What would you do if you had Ric Flair paired up, how crazy would this be, with Tessa Blanchard? Her dad's there. He's tied up with, his business. And then you bring Ric Flair in to work with Tessa Blanchard. Because Tessa Blanchard had talks with the NWA recently. Very recently. NWA reached out to Blanchard, see if they were interested in using her on a full-time basis. She's only worked one match since leaving Impact. And she lost. It was like a show with Kylie Ray. It was a Warrior Wrestling show. Since then, she's training. She got married to her fiancé was Daga, former Impact star, but she hasn't really done anything since, and it's time. And I understand there's some controversy around Tessa Blanchard, but it'd be a great way to tie Ric Flair into a storyline that is Tully Blanchard, doesn't have to be, Arn Anderson, doesn't have to be Four Horsemen related, and could really be a contributing factor. And how interesting would that be that Charlotte wanted him to leave WWE and get out of her way, and he goes over to AEW or the NWA or any of those promotions and pairs up with Tessa Blanchard. I think that's such an interesting layer, and at some point, I know people are going to hate me for saying this, I would love to see Tessa show up in WWE with Ric Flair to challenge Charlotte. I think it would be a great storyline and something I think fans could really sink their teeth into. A match we might not be seeing is the SummerSlam match between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, because Sasha Banks, again tonight, is not backstage at the SmackDown tapings. Now, we don't understand what's going on, but the word is she might be being pulled from the SummerSlam show. And what's really a shame about that is I firmly believe she's slated to win the championship at that show. And I think it's time. Bianca Belair's had a great run. She's a phenomenal talent. But you got to shift it around every now and again. And I think Sasha Banks is the perfect person to put the championship on. I was actually looking forward to seeing that. Now it's not going to... Doesn't sound like it's going to happen unless something dramatic changes and shifts in the next 24 hours. So that match may be off. A match that's on is Goldberg and Lashley, and I'm sorry. I have been watching all day. People have been putting up their predictions for SummerSlam. Goldberg's going to be this surprise upsetter. Bobby Lashley is going to squash Goldberg. I'll be honest with you. I did see both scenarios playing out. The problem I have is Bobby Lashley is the most legitimate champion I've seen in quite some time, even more so than Drew McIntyre. And I would love to see Bobby Lashley not in a squash, not in a 45-second match, but in a legitimate match, because Goldberg can put on a legitimate match. Get him away from all the high power stuff and spearing and jackhammering being his only moves. If you remember back in WCW, he could do a few toe hold, wrist holds, this hold, that hold. Do that. God, the guy's in his 50s. Those holds are not hard to apply. Let him actually wrestle. And Bobby Lashley, to his credit, can actually go in there and work with almost anybody. So give them some time. Let them tell a story. Let Lashley keep the championship. So he walks out, and it's even more of a legitimate championship run for whenever Brock Lesnar decides to come back and face Bobby Lashley. And by the way, I think Lashley should beat Lesnar, since Lashley has been a full-timer the whole time, and Lesnar's Mr. Part-time, and who doesn't seem to want to be committed to all this stuff. So even though Sasha Banks, who we were just talking about a few minutes ago, she made it really clear she thinks Bobby Lashley's going to squash Goldberg. Maybe he does. Maybe she has some inside dirt. I hope it's not a squash, one way or the other. Because let's be honest, if Goldberg wins, it has to be a squash, because it doesn't seem like he goes very long. At least they don't think he can go very long. And Bobby Lashley squashing him, I think, does nothing for Goldberg's reputation or the other 2 matches that he made it clear this week are still on his contract. Asuka has been off TV now for over a month, hasn't been on since the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and it's starting to get a little concerning. How can WWE not have anything for Asuka to do? She doesn't have to be in a championship match all the time. But there are multiple things. Today I was listening to a Jim Cornette's Drive-Thru podcast episode where they were from a couple weeks ago, where they were running down all the different champions of WWE. If you can't find something for her to do, to challenge for, to be a legitimate threat to, or whatever, heck, you could send her back to NXT and let her be the one challenging Raquel Gonzalez and make it legitimate. You can't be letting her sit on the sidelines. You can't be putting her off the show, sending her home because she's not booked for anything. That is a disgusting waste of talent. And I understand WWE has been booking terribly lately, but how do you mess up Asuka? I just don't understand it. She is way too talented to not be used. WWE, get your head straight. Do something correct. I had some people shot me an email this week asking me what I thought about the retirement of the TNA Championship and Christian with the Impact World Championship. First off, retire the TNA Championship is fine with me. The Impact and TNA are the same thing. One was a company that bought out the other. That other one ceased to exist. So having a belt for it, I understood why they did it at first with Moose, just trying to, because you had an issue going on with Tessa Blanchard, and you didn't know what was going to go on with your championship, and Brian Cage leaving the company when he was about to challenge again, and things like that. I get it, but it's time. Just have one championship belt. The Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship. You get rid of the TNA one. Now, as far in terms of Christian being the champion, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. I don't think he ever got the legitimate opportunity to be the world champion in WWE the way he should have. Yes, he had a couple reigns, nothing of substantial time. He had some NWA championship runs in TNA back in the day as well. This is a nice return to that. Here's my problem with it. AEW builds their entire calendar year around Double or Nothing and All Out. And you just gave away the main event to All Out for free on network television a couple weeks before the big show is supposed to take place. What the heck are they thinking? Now, I understand I was just complaining about WWE's booking because WWE sucks at booking lately. But one thing they're smart enough not to do, sometimes, not always. I'm about to eat my own words because this week they literally had Rhea Ripley defeat Nikki Ash. But you typically don't see the champion lose clean in a one-on-one situation to their challenger at the upcoming pay-per-view. There's always like a tag team thing or a schmaz ending or whatever. How can you possibly have Kenny Omega get his first ever loss first loss in over 2 years in AEW, coming on a free television show for another company's championship? Does not make a drop of sense to me. That match should have taken place the week after All Out. If Kenny Omega is going to retain it All Out, he should have retained it All Out, had a rematch, but decided that he's say, I'm going to have a championship rematch, and when they have a championship rematch, have Christian win, but when then throw in the surprise and say, yeah, it was a championship match, but not for the AEW championship. It was for the Impact Wrestling Championship. And then give it to him that way. That would have made a lot more sense to me. This made no sense to me whatsoever. So I have a real problem with that. And the last thing for tonight, Bobby Fulton. So if you were a fan of Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton, they were the Fantastics, toured all through the NWA territories. They hit just about everywhere for a short period of time. A lot of stuff that they did over in World Class. They feuded with the Midnight Express and all sorts of tag teams throughout the years. Always like a mid to upper mid card tag team. U.S. tag team champions in the NWA and WCW and this kind of thing. Bobby Fulton was rushed this week to the hospital. He is in some serious, some bad situation. His son posted that he was spitting up blood, and Bobby Fulton just got over cancer. He had throat cancer, I guess about almost 2 years ago at this point, that he was cleared of last June. But he is 59 years old. He's one of the good guys. There's not a wrestler. When you go to these WrestleCons and conventions and things like that, and you talk to different people about the different talents that they've worked with over the years, Bobby Fulton is one of those guys you'll never hear a person say a bad thing about. Great guy, really personable, super approachable, and Bobby Fulton sending out well wishes and get wells from all of us here at Pro Wrestling Podcast. We need him to pull through. We're losing too many superstars that really mean something in ways that people sometimes don't always know about. A couple weeks ago we lost beautiful Bobby Eaton. I don't know if anybody will ever understand the level of contribution Bobby Eaton had to the pro wrestling industry. Losing him is a horrible loss. And we don't want to lose anybody else. We got so many great talents over the years. It'd be great to see Bobby Fulton pull through this. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com. They produce all the music and sound effects we use in our shows. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life educational planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I am Dr. Frederick Froelich. For those who were asking why I've been away so long, I am now Dr. Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.